And welcome in our next guest. That's Paul McCarthy, the president of Kisco Capital, to help us preview and set up Palantir. You know, I was just looking at this stock earlier on in the show. I'm not sure if you had a chance to catch that, Paul, but I don't know if there's a name I'm more impressed with the performance over the last few weeks, maybe month, after kind of the swoon of volatility late March, early April. This stock's all the way back. Does that surprise you?
I look at, I use Elliott wave analysis because I did see your segment earlier with the chart. And it does seem like we're tracing out a clear 5-wave impulsive pattern. After 5 waves are complete, we should see a larger correction. To me, that implies the stock could get as high as, let's say, the mid hundreds. I'm not saying that's going to happen today after earnings, but it does look like it's in the cards. And I think afterwards, I think you'll see a longer pullback consolidation period, maybe a time for the company to grow some revenues into the valuation. Maybe some longer term investors will start to come back into the stock. But it's just been a tremendous, meteoric rise. But to me, it does look like a 5-wave impulsive pattern. Investors are probably signaling that for the long term, this is probably just the first 5 waves up, and that there will be more upside in the coming years. But it's clear we've kind of pulled forward a lot of the valuation, just given the multiples that the stock's currently trading at. So for today in the earnings call, I really want to hear about how they're generating revenue.
Yeah, and we know it's sort of two facets, right? They've got this really kind of core, comfortable position where they've generated a lot of money through government contracts over the years. But the exciting part to the street over the last few years, Paul, has been the expanding enterprise or non-government contracts. What are you most specifically looking at when it comes to the performance from Palantir, and what would you like to see?
Yeah, I've seen Alex Karpa's interviews. He's always very bullish. One thing that, he has mentioned about onshoring U.S. manufacturing, which obviously ties directly into the rationale behind some of the Trump tariffs that we're seeing now. They did announce one partnership with an aerospace manufacturer called Nautilus that's going to be using their operating system to reshore their manufacturing back into the U.S. and scaling production to meet demand for cargo and passenger markets with sustainable aircraft. So they are beginning to do that. He has more or less said they think they are uniquely positioned to be able to provide that product to companies that have manufacturing overseas. So that could be a big business for them. And it's obviously a very complex thing to do. There's a lot of local knowledge that needs to be transplanted. He thinks that a lot of companies don't really know how to do that. So that's one area I think they can really get a foothold on and be sort of a first mover in that regard. So that would be really interesting to see more deals like this Nautilus partnership that they announced.
You mentioned sort of the good. You talked about the kind of the dynamic leader that always is, talking up the stock. You see that in other names, the Elons, the et cetera, Steve Jobs in the past. So those are things that can help it. You talked about the fifth wave, perhaps sending this stock higher if they have the catalyst and that pattern unfolds. But is there anything that gives you pause? Are you worried about the 220 times forward earnings, the 80 times forward sales, or is this company just growing so rapidly in such kind of futuristic technology that you can kind of plug your nose and look past that?
I mean, I'm not, I'm not in this name just for that concern. Like I said, I think there'll be a better opportunity to pull in. I think if the company was smart, they would sell stock here. And, we've seen Elon did that with, Tesla back in the day when valuations looked very high. They eventually grew into them. But I think if Palantir was smart, they would actually look to sell stock here, just given how high the valuations are. So you could get an announcement like that from the company. I still think that it's something like 25 times like top line that the company trades at. So even just delaying, for example, the expectation of when revenues might come in, that could haircut the stock as well. Mm-hmm. And I think they are kind of tied to what the budget is of the government. I mean, we're in a period of cutting costs. I saw the defense spending is projected to be higher for next year, but I think, the budget will also, the U.S. government budget is going to dictate, where the revenues are going to come from also. So that's a bit of a question mark to me. I don't think, I've seen this so many times with different stocks. They always correct at some point. It'll happen for Palantir. It'll probably get to such an extreme price where people will just start to take profits, and you'll probably see the stock come down below 100 again. That's my sort of estimate sometime this year. So I like the name, I like the company. I think they're going to have a good quarter, but I'm going to be patient on this name and wait.
Appreciate it. Paul McCarthy, president of Kisco Capital, with the update and kind of highlighting the risks despite all the potential successes the stock has for the future as well. Appreciate the preview. Looking forward to Palantir earnings.